Sometimes life can be hard. Between work, school, and everyday living, it can feel impossible at times to find joy in the things you used to. That's why I switched to video games. With video games, I have found a new lease on life. I'm able to enjoy things in a way I used to only dream of. Thanks to video games, I'm loving life again.
Video games are super awesome. Video games are so awesome, in fact, that you might find yourself playing them too much. If you or a loved one find yourself addicted to video games, make sure to go outside and touch some grass. Video games are not recommended for people with epilepsy. No need to consult a physician before playing. I am not a doctor.
Depression. If you haven't felt the talons of depression claw away at your soul even a tiny bit in the year of our Lord 2025, well, I don't believe you. Between the dopamine overload that is most social media, the constant doom and gloom of the daily news, and the struggle we all have to find our third place, it's almost impossible to avoid the nastiness of depression. Even more so if you're a Dallas Mavericks fan. Yikes. Now, I'm no professional, and I don't claim to be able to cure diddly squat, but after my last video where I learned about the potential video games have at treating cognitive decline, I couldn't help but wonder, if video games might be able to help treat dementia, could video games also help treat depression? Let's cut the crap for a second. I am not a doctor. This is not professional advice. I'm just a dude Googling answers to the questions that I have. Even though I have struggled with it myself, depression is so much more complex than I can pretend to understand. So don't use me as some bastion for mental health advice. If you're struggling, see a professional. Even if video games might help, you need a whole suite of tools in order to tackle depression. I listed some resources in the description below that you can use to get the help that you need. Anyways, back to the video. So before we talk about how video games might be able to help treat depression, we first have to answer, what exactly is depression? According to the DSM-5, which is the American Psychiatric Association's professional reference book on mental health, don't ask me why I have this, depression, or major depressive disorder as it's clinically called, is characterized by persistent sadness, loss of interest, and at least 5 other symptoms, including changes in sleep, appetite, energy, concentration, and self-worth, lasting for at least 2 weeks. Along with feeling down and not finding joy in the same things that they typically love, a person with depression might experience drastic changes in their weight, sleeping way too much, or overwhelming feelings of worthlessness, just to give a few examples. Like I said before, depression is complex and it has many faces, so it can be hard to find the tools that effectively treat depression. Rather than trying to make the argument that video games can treat depression as a whole, in this video I will highlight specific games that do a great job at tackling some of the biggest symptoms prevalent in depression. Now I'm about to say something really brave here. Shit is fucked right now.
Wow, so brave.
I love him.
Prices are high, people are lonely, and every day the news just seems to get more and more out of pocket. It's incredibly easy to feel like everything is out of control, like you're just a crash test dummy stuck in a car you have no control over. When you feel like you aren't in control of your life, it's super easy for depression to sneak in if you're not vigilant. No, I see you over there. You get now. You stay away. Anyway, where was I? Yes, there was a study published in the Journal of Psychology titled, "A Sense of Control Predicts Depressive and Anxious Symptoms Across the Transition to Parenthood." A bit on the nose, but they are researchers, not artists. Give them a break, people. In this study, the authors took a look at the relationship between a sense of control and depressive symptoms in new parents. I won't bore you with all of the details, but the researchers found that a higher sense of control resulted in less depressive symptoms, and the more that sense of control increased over time, the less the parents felt the effects of depression. You're probably thinking,
well, that's all fine and dandy, but where do video games fit in here?
Enter The Sims. Yeah, I know I talk about them a lot, but The Sims is very impactful and important here. What game gives players a better sense of control than The Sims? You can control your individual Sims, the amount of money they make, how many friends they have, how successful in romance they are, and it doesn't stop there. You can get even higher level with it. With some of the DLC in The Sims 4, you can control entire city policies, club rules, specific job performance, almost whatever you can think of. If there's something bothering you about the real world, chances are that The Sims offers some way of creating and controlling a utopic version of it in-game. I can say from first-hand experience that this can help you feel a sense of control in your real life, which can in turn help your depressive symptoms. As a matter of fact, this is a tool I worked with my therapist on developing in my own struggle with depression. When I feel like my life is spiraling out of control, I boot up The Sims to escape and feel a semblance of control before returning to the real world and reassessing what's going on around me. It truly has helped wonders. And it's not just me. There's an article published on Medium where the author details their struggles with feelings of control and how The Sims has helped them cope. There was a similar article published on Ball State Daily News, and there are multiple Reddit threads making similar claims. Do we have empirical evidence to show that The Sims can treat this contribution to depression? No, not really. As you'll see throughout this video, most of the effects on individual games are only anecdotal at best, but I believe that if enough people are seeing positive effects from these games, then there has to be some benefit even if it hasn't been studied yet. Something that has been studied, though, is the effects of mindfulness practices on depression. There has been study after study after study after study after study on this. It might come off as a shock, but according to the science, meditation, grounding, breathing, and yoga all have incredible benefits in treating the symptoms of depression. There are two great comprehensive study analyses from the National Institute of Health and the American Psychological Association that essentially find that working on emotional regulation and grounding oneself in the present can significantly reduce the symptoms of depression, both directly and indirectly. Mindfulness does a great job at stopping people from suppressing their feelings, excessively worrying, or ruminating for too long on the thoughts that don't serve them. Truly, mindfulness practices are some of the best tools that you can have at your arsenal in the fight against depression. What game does a better job at highlighting mindfulness amidst chaos than Ghost of Tsushima? This game was crafted from head to toe with mindfulness at the forefront of its game design. With its minimal UI, it places heavy emphasis on taking in the beauty of your surroundings. Even the navigation system is curated to craft a sense of nature and connection to the world, as the game has you follow gusts of wind instead of a traditional waypoint marker. If that's not enough, Ghost of Tsushima delicately balances combat that evokes a sense of presence and flow with meditative breaks where Jin Sakai spends moments deep in reflection and introspection. One moment you find yourself in a trance, cutting down hordes of Mongols. The next moment you find yourself taking a deep breath, reflecting on the shape of a tree against the sharp backdrop of a gorgeous mountain range. Without being preachy in any way, Ghost of Tsushima acts as an example to players of how they can find moments of tranquility even when times are hard through consistent grounding and reflection. If you were to follow the lead of Jin Sakai and apply these simple mindfulness principles to your everyday life, you may end up seeing some of the benefits outlined in the studies I mentioned earlier. Real quick, if you're still paying attention to this video, I want you to leave a comment letting me know what games have helped you get through the toughest times in your life. Let's talk about them below. Do you ever feel small? I mean really small. I mean really, really small.
When your self-esteem is low, it's easy to feel like everything around you is much larger than it actually is, and it can make even the smallest of obstacles feel insurmountable.
According to articles from Mayo Clinic, Mind.org, the UK's National Health Service, and dozens of self-help books, one of the most surefire ways to raise your self-esteem is to challenge yourself and overcome that challenge. Seeing as when you're depressed, it can be hard enough to even get off of the couch, I think this is the perfect place for video games to enter the conversation. And you may know where I'm going with this. Anyone who has ever played a Souls-like will tell you the same thing. This game has changed my life. With each new From Software release, there are a dozen new reports about how their latest game changed someone's life. At the very least, for a lot of people, these games have reframed how they look at death in video games. What they used to see as a failure, they now see as another part of the experience. Then on the other side of the spectrum, you see people on Reddit, YouTube, and other social medias talking about how Elden Ring helped them overcome addiction, or how Sekiro helped them distract themselves from the ruminations of their depression, or how Dark Souls helped them see everyday challenges of life in a new, easier to digest light. You even have some people who claim that FromSoft's games stopped them from taking their own life. Now, I don't think that Elden Ring is some magical cure-all for depression, but I do believe that if any game has some merit to its abilities to be used as a tool in the fight against depression, it's a FromSoft game. And it doesn't even have to be a FromSoft game specifically. It just has to be a game with a similar design philosophy. A game that sets out to challenge the players fairly and reward them in return. For me, that game was Sifu. Sifu helped drag me out of a pretty bad mental funk, and it reminded me that I could do hard things. Sometimes that reminder is all we need. When you're deep in the throes of depression, the only thing you might be able to get yourself to do is play a video game. If that's you, I think you should really consider making your next game a FromSoft game. It might just be the challenge you need to get the ball rolling and gain the upper hand in the struggle against this demon. Look, at the end of the day, can video games cure depression? No, not by a long shot. But any depressed person will tell you when you're going through it, doing literally anything can seem impossible. I think that when you find yourself glued to your couch or bed, attacking a game with the right mindset can really help. Whether it's trying to gain some sort of control with The Sims, exploring what mindfulness looks like in Ghost of Tsushima, or conquering mountainous challenges in Elden Ring, these can be great starting points that may eventually help lead to real improvement. Of course, video games alone aren't enough, but when used as a part of a broader strategy, we might find that they are a highly effective tool in the fight against depression. If nothing else, I hope that this video lets you know that you are not alone and that there are a plethora of tools you can use to win this fight against depression, many of which are already at your disposal. And who knows, maybe some researcher will end up watching this and conduct a study into the actual effects of these games like the nerd that they are. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. It just got heavy there and I needed some type of humorous break. Until then, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. My next videos are not going to be this heavy. I'm going to move away from some of the big questions for a while, and I'm going to try to keep it a little bit more lighthearted and fun. Some of my next videos might be going over some of my favorite elements in games, and I might teeter into some review videos. If there's a certain type of video you'd like to see me do, let me know in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.